It's becoming increasingly clear that Max Verstappen's situation at Red Bull has gone from frustrating to downright miserable. Instead of fighting for victories and championships, the four-time world champion is finding himself stuck in battles with midfield teams, struggling just to secure strong points finishes. For a driver of Verstappen's caliber, that's far from where he expected to be. Red Bull appear to be searching for answers with no obvious solution in sight. Despite confidence from within the team regarding their power unit project, results on track tell a very different story. Naturally, speculation about Verstappen's future has only intensified. Meanwhile, at the opposite end of the paddock, Fernando Alonso finds himself facing a completely different challenge. Aston Martin's performance has fallen dramatically, leaving the team looking uncompetitive and disconnected from the front of the field. For Alonso, who is now 44 years old, questions about how and where he wants to end his Formula One career are becoming more relevant than ever. With so many uncertainties surrounding the grid, the 2026 driver market is starting to heat up. In this video, we'll break down the latest rumors, driver comments, and possible team changes that could reshape Formula One next season. But before diving into the rest of the grid, we have to start with the biggest story of them all, Max Verstappen. Because right now, there's a genuine debate about what his future in Formula One looks like. This is a position Verstappen never expected to find himself in. A driver who became accustomed to fighting at the very front is now dealing with a Red Bull team that can no longer consistently challenge for wins and appears uncertain about how to recover its dominance. The situation has become increasingly difficult. Regulatory changes, technical setbacks, and ongoing frustrations have all contributed to the team's decline. On top of that, Verstappen has never hidden his dislike for certain aspects of the current Formula One regulations and the style of racing they've produced. Of course, every profession comes with challenges, and Formula One is no exception. The difference is that Verstappen happens to be one of the highest-paid athletes in motorsport. Walking away from the sport would mean stepping away from a contract reportedly worth around $70 million per year before performance bonuses. That kind of money would make most people think twice. But Verstappen has never been someone who bases his decisions purely on finances. If he feels a project no longer matches his ambitions, he'll seriously consider his options. And fortunately for him, there are several possible paths forward. One option is to remain with Red Bull, ride out the current regulation cycle, and wait for the competitive order to shift once Formula One enters another technical era. Given his importance to the team, he would likely remain the centerpiece of Red Bull's future plans and could even negotiate improved terms when the time comes. The alternative is far more dramatic. Verstappen could decide that his best chance of returning to regular race-winning form lies elsewhere and begin exploring opportunities with rival teams. Such a move would almost certainly attract enormous interest across the paddock and probably come with an even larger salary package. Both scenarios are reportedly being discussed as Verstappen and Red Bull evaluate their future together. However, before looking at potential destinations, we need to address the biggest question hanging over this entire story: Verstappen's contract. Officially, he's tied to Red Bull until the end of the 2028 season, but the key issue has always been whether there are circumstances that could allow him to leave before that deal expires. For a long time, discussions about exit clauses in Max Verstappen's contract were treated as little more than paddock rumors. But now, we finally have confirmation that such a clause does exist. Verstappen's manager, Raymond Vermeulen, has publicly addressed the situation for the first time, giving fans a clearer picture of what could happen next. Reports have circulated for months, suggesting that Verstappen has a performance-related clause that could allow him to leave Red Bull after this season. The widely discussed condition is tied to his championship position at the summer break. If he's outside the top two in the standings when Formula One heads into its mid-season pause, the clause is believed to become available for activation. Considering Verstappen is currently sitting well below that threshold, the possibility is becoming increasingly realistic. Should that trigger be met, Verstappen would reportedly have until October to decide his future. At that point, he could either remain committed to Red Bull or begin exploring opportunities elsewhere on the grid. Last week, Verstappen and Vermeulen met with senior Red Bull figures in Austria to discuss the team's future direction. However, the meeting apparently ended without any firm guarantees regarding the driver's long-term commitment. That uncertainty has only fueled speculation. Speaking to German publication Sport Bild, Vermeulen acknowledged that a major decision is approaching. According to him, Verstappen's preference remains staying with Red Bull and honoring his existing agreement. However, that commitment ultimately depends on whether the team can prove it has a realistic path back to the front of the field. Vermeulen explained that they hope clarity will arrive soon, potentially before the summer break. He emphasized that the current contract runs through 2028 and noted that while exit clauses have always existed within such such agreements, they have never previously needed to be considered. He also stressed that loyalty has been a key part of their relationship with Red Bull and that their ideal scenario would be seeing Verstappen spend the remainder of his Formula One career with the team. The condition, however, is simple. The ability to compete for victories must remain available. Red Bull, meanwhile, appear determined to remove any uncertainty. According to reports, the team is considering a financial package designed to persuade Verstappen to give up the option of activating the clause altogether. The suggested figure is believed to be worth several $1,000,000, a substantial incentive on top of an already enormous contract. If Verstappen accepted such an arrangement and remained with Red Bull through the end of his deal, the total value of his earnings over the remaining years could comfortably exceed $150 million. That's a powerful argument for staying put. But Formula One decisions are rarely driven by money alone. For a driver like Verstappen, the opportunity to fight for wins and championships is just as important. And that's where Mercedes enters the conversation. Recent performances have shown that Mercedes possess a car capable of challenging near the front. Rookie sensation Andrea Kimi Antonelli has delivered promising signs for the team's future, while George Russell has continued to lead the squad with strong performances. However, the biggest factor driving the Verstappen to Mercedes rumors is Russell's contract situation. Russell's current deal is set to expire at the end of the season. If a new agreement isn't reached, Mercedes could suddenly find itself with an open seat at exactly the same moment Verstappen's future becomes uncertain. When you combine Russell's unresolved contract with Toto Wolff's long-standing admiration for Verstappen, it's easy to understand why speculation refuses to disappear. The pieces seem to fit together almost too perfectly. Adding further fuel to the fire, Ralf Schumacher recently claimed that Mercedes has already approached Verstappen with an offer. According to Schumacher, the proposal wasn't particularly attractive from a financial standpoint and therefore failed to generate serious interest from the Dutchman. That said, Schumacher's comments should probably be treated with caution. Over the years, he has developed a reputation for making bold claims that occasionally stretch beyond what can be independently verified. Whether there's genuine substance behind this latest report remains to be seen. Responding to an Instagram post that referenced Ralf Schumacher's claims, Max Verstappen's father, Jos Verstappen, was quick to dismiss the story. His response was blunt and direct. "Ralf, once again, you're sharing incorrect information." That statement immediately raised another question. Was Schumacher wrong about Mercedes approaching Verstappen altogether, or was the issue simply the details he reported regarding the financial side of the deal? Fortunately, we may not have to wait very long for answers. The summer break arrives shortly after round 11, and that's expected to be a key moment in Verstappen's decision-making process. If the rumored contract clause becomes active, he'll face a major choice: commit his future to Red Bull or explore a move elsewhere. And if Verstappen does decide to leave, one of the biggest drivers affected could be George Russell. But before we get into that story and why Fernando Alonso might unexpectedly be connected to it, make sure to like the video and subscribe to F1 Reverse if you're enjoying the content and want to stay updated on all the latest Formula One news and rumors. Thanks for your support. Now, while Verstappen's season has certainly been frustrating, Fernando Alonso might have an even stronger case for feeling disappointed. The two-time world champion has endured a brutal campaign so far. In fact, it's hard to imagine a more unfortunate situation. Alonso joined Aston Martin believing the team was building towards something special, especially with legendary designer Adrian Newey becoming involved in the project. Instead, the team has found itself struggling near the back of the field. To be fair to Alonso, this wasn't an obviously bad decision when he made it. At the time, Aston Martin looked like one of the most ambitious projects in Formula One. Unfortunately, circumstances have unfolded in the worst possible way. The frustration was clear after qualifying in Barcelona, where Alonso finished behind Lance Stroll for the first time in 43 races. Yet despite the disappointing result, Alonso didn't seem shocked by it. From his perspective, the outcome simply reflected the reality of the car's current performance. Inside the team, there appears to be little confusion about where the problems lie. The car has weaknesses across multiple areas, and Aston Martin knows significant improvements are needed if they're going to become competitive again. Rather than spending resources on a series of small updates, the team has reportedly chosen to focus everything on a major upgrade package expected later in the season. The belief is that minor improvements won't be enough to move them forward in any meaningful way. Honda is also believed to be working on improvements to its power unit, although the manufacturer has avoided committing to a specific timetable for those changes. Until both projects arrive, expectations inside the team remain extremely low. That reality is beginning to wear on Alonso. Speaking about the situation, he admitted that every race weekend feels almost identical. The same questions, the same explanations, and the same disappointing results continue to repeat themselves. Alonso explained that the team understands exactly where it stands and isn't trying to hide from the truth. They're currently waiting for the second half of the season and hoping the new package can finally move them in the right direction. He also pointed to several problem areas, including engine performance, energy deployment, gearbox reliability, and aerodynamic efficiency. According to Alonso, the team is working to address every weakness, but meaningful progress will take take time. When Alonso originally joined Aston Martin, he made it clear that he wasn't looking for a short-term project. His goal was to stay long enough to see the team become a genuine championship contender. He even spoke about wanting to remain with Aston Martin until they were capable of winning a world title. At the moment, that dream feels very far away. Adding another layer of uncertainty is Alonso's contract situation. His current deal expires at the end of the season, leaving questions about what happens next. Will Aston Martin want to continue with Alonso beyond this year? On paper, replacing a driver with his experience and talent would seem difficult. There aren't many options on the grid who could offer more. But Formula One decisions aren't always logical. And given some of Aston Martin's recent struggles, it's hard to predict exactly what direction the team might choose. Of course, there's also the possibility that the decision won't belong to Aston Martin at all. Alonso himself may have some important choices to make about the next chapter of his career. Ever since the Miami Grand Prix, rumors around Fernando Alonso's future have been gaining momentum throughout the paddock. One destination keeps appearing in those conversations more than any other: Alpine, the team closely connected to some of the most successful years of his Formula One career. For Alonso, it would represent a return to familiar territory. Long before he became a two-time world champion, he started his Formula One journey with the Enstone-based team when it competed under the Benetton name. That organization later transformed into Renault, where Alonso achieved championship glory under the leadership of Flavio Briatore. Years later, Briatore is back in the picture. Although officially serving as a consultant for the Renault Group, many within the paddock believe he currently holds significant influence over Alpine's day-to-day direction. More importantly, his professional relationship with Alonso never disappeared. Briatore still plays a key role in managing the Spaniard's career interests. That connection is one of the main reasons why Alonso's name continues to be linked so strongly with a potential move to Alpine for next season. If such a move were to happen, the seat most commonly mentioned is currently occupied by Franco Colapinto. While Colapinto has shown signs of improvement and has made progress throughout the season, there are still questions about whether his performances have been convincing enough to secure his long-term future with the team. However, Alonso isn't the only driver being discussed as a candidate. Two other names consistently appearing in the conversation are George Russell and Alex Albon. Both drivers are approaching the end of their current contracts, making them attractive options if Alpine decides to shake up its lineup. Of those possibilities, Russell is undoubtedly the most intriguing. His contract situation alone would make him a major talking point, but there is another factor driving speculation. For years, Toto Wolff has openly expressed his admiration for Max Verstappen. The Mercedes team principal has rarely hidden his desire to one day bring the Dutchman into the Silver Arrows setup. Because of that, many observers have started wondering whether Mercedes still views Russell as the long-term centerpiece of its future plans. It's difficult to know exactly what's happening behind closed doors. Perhaps Mercedes has access to performance data that raises certain concerns. Maybe the team expected a different level from Russell in specific situations, or perhaps comparisons with rising star Andrea Kimi Antonelli have influenced internal evaluations. Whatever the reason may be, there is a growing feeling that Russell's standing within Mercedes is not quite as strong as it once appeared. That naturally leads to an interesting question. If Verstappen became available and Mercedes decided to pursue him aggressively, where would that leave Russell? Could Alpine emerge as a realistic destination? Might Aston Martin become an option if opportunities open up there? Or could another surprise contender enter the race for his signature? At this stage, there are more questions than answers. But with several major contracts approaching their expiration dates, George Russell's future is quickly becoming one of the most fascinating storylines to watch as the driver market begins to take shape. What do you think happens next? Does Russell remain with Mercedes, or could he be preparing for a completely new challenge in 2026? Let me know your predictions in the comments below.